BJ Counsel. I view the world through the lens of having been followed by a white clerk as a child while shopping in a five and dime. I'm a retired police executive and own UN50, which gives guidance on surviving interactions with police.
I'm Harmony Chavis, and I view the world through the lens of one of the most misunderstood and diverse generations in our nation's history. I'm a social worker and a believer of radical kindness and love as modalities of healing.
My name is Andrew Counsel. I view the world through the lens of a generational camera phone. I wake up as a black male and go to bed as a black male. I am surviving this never-ending court case we commonly call life in the best way I know how.
All right, welcome back. I'm hoping everybody's safe and well. Seems like it's been a while, but I know what has been a while is my nephew is back. And so we're real excited to welcome him back to the podcast. He got an internship, so we'll get to him in just a minute. But we'll do just going to be the three of us kind of chatting about a couple of things today. So first of all, I kind of want to ask Andrew how he's been, what kind of internship you've got, because you've been away from us for at least 2 or 3 shows. So how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Thank you for asking. It's good to be back. Good to see y'all's faces and hear y'all's voices. But yes, the internship that I obtained for this spring semester takes place on the same day that we would usually record. And I have a meeting or a Zoom meeting every Monday night from around 5 to 8 p.m. And basically the title of what I'm doing basically is a marketing and research intern, or I'm the marketing and research intern for the Greensboro Chamber of Commerce, where specifically the I guess the subset that I work for is called Launch Greensboro, and basically they are a program that hosts different professional development events for entrepreneurs in the Triad area. And basically they give us the interns work. Basically we do independent contract work for the entrepreneurs. So a lot of work that I've been doing has been in marketing and research, specifically building marketing plans, building things for them to be able to use within their companies, doing a lot of research and competitive research and analysis for them as well too. So it's good hands-on work for what I want to do after I graduate. So I'm very blessed to have the opportunity to work with them.
Wow, that's impressive with the Greensboro Chamber of Commerce, man. That's I see Harmony over there shaking her head like that's awesome.
This food is good. It is smacking, but Andrew, I don't know. Well, I was on mute, but I said, "Damn."
Thank you.
I didn't even know that was like a resource that existed, though. That's really cool.
It is. It's really nice. It's very helpful for them because a lot of them are just starting out, and then some of them have already been in business for years too. But the knowledge that is shared can be used for any platform that they or any step stool that they're on.
Right.
So it's very, very helpful for them to be able to get this knowledge. And then they have like not really free interns, but we get paid for the work that we do, but we don't get paid by them. We get paid by, of course, the Greensboro Chamber of Commerce. So they get free intern work for anything that they need, so which is really helpful.
Whoa, is that only for Greensboro?
Yes, unfortunately, but I've heard that they have different programs like similar to this in other areas as well too.
Oh, really?
That's what I've heard. Yes, that's what I heard.
So I guess I need to do a little research at the Durham Chamber.
Yes.
See if they got anything for this one business person. Okay, wow, that's great. Congratulations. That sounds like so how do you see that evolving into your career? What is that?
So as I think I mentioned before, like when we first started this show, I'm kind of applying for positions within journalism as well as marketing and research specifically. So and also customer experience engineering as well too. So a lot of things that I'm doing now are going straight from the work that I'm doing straight to my portfolio. So I'm able to add everything that I'm doing to my portfolio and use it as transferable work experience that someone or an employer can look at to see how I can add to their company. So I've been getting a lot of experience and a lot of tangible things that I can add to my resume, which is really good.
Yeah, that is really good. Wow, good for you. That's awesome. I'm really happy for you, and I'm very proud of you. And I'm can't wait to see you get out there and knock it down. Yeah, that's awesome. I'm just really, and I'm also just excited to have you back, the team's back together. So it's been really cool. So thank you. Harmony, um,
Hey.
hey. So how you been? It's been a couple of weeks since we've chatted or seen each other. Tell us, how's Molly?
Molly's good. Um, for background, I guess because most people won't know this, she had to have emergency surgery. She had something called a pyometra, which is an infection of the uterus. So they had to go in and take out her uterus and both of her ovaries, but she's doing good.
Good,
She's
good.
hanging in there.
And how old is Molly again?
Molly is 10.
10. Wow.
So her's an old lady. She's a good girl, though.
She's a good, yeah. 10 is
I'm
good.
good. I'm 200 times better now that I've eaten. Like I had not eaten all day. My friend bought me like a smoothie from Smoothie King, but you know how I eat. Like that was nothing.
That didn't even scratch the surface. Why are you not eating? That's not healthy. I mean,
It wasn't,
look, I'm sounding like a mother now. You know
you're
that's
like,
not
okay,
healthy. You got to
Dad.
eat. Yeah.
Okay. It was just a busy day.
Okay.
And I wanted to make my okay. Let me just calm down because this really pisses me off. So I've recently been trying to transition to like gluten-free products.
Mm,
So I've just been, trying stuff because this shit is expensive.
yeah.
I got these $5 bagels and it was only four of those motherfuckers in there. Excuse me. Sorry. I opened it today for breakfast. I'm like, this is gluten free. Like, I'm excited about this to see how it tastes, blah, blah, blah. I'm trying to really pump this up mainly because it costs $5. Every single bagel has mold on it. And
Mm.
I was like, I'm done.
Oh,
Do you hear waffles in the background?
a little bit, but not loud.
This is also disgusting. He's humping something.
Well, we've had that conversation.
That's what he's doing right now.
And we're not going to take that out either. I'm not mad at a cat for humping. That's all. I'm not mad at the cat. So cool. All right. Well, I'm glad we're all back together. We're just going to kind of talk about a couple of things and a couple of topics that I want to toss out. There has been in the news media recently, Fuquay-Varina, I think it was a 15-year-old who was 14, I'm sorry, a 14-year-old that was handcuffed and put in the back of the car because they thought um, he'd been accused of possibly having some stolen property. And in reality, it turned out he had actually had a receipt for it and was not aware that it had been stolen. So there's a lot of conversation in Fuquay around that. And then the other thing that I'd like to kind of toss out or talk a little bit about is working on this project for UN50 and doing Black History Month. Decided to do a little research on the conversation for mainly sometimes for folks, especially police officers. Why black folks looking at y'all sideways? Why black folks looking at the popo sideways? And then so I did been doing some work on that and just delving into the history, Black history of slave patrols and on up. So I found a couple of things that I'd like to just for us to kind of I'll put out there that we can talk about. So let's talk about this young man, and his name is Malcolm Ziglar, Zigler. I've also seen it spelled as Ziglar. So I apologize if I'm based on the thing that I got. So did you guys get a chance to read this article about this young man and his mother, and and the incident that occurred? If
Yes, I
not,
did.
okay. So, I mean, just for our audience who haven't heard about it, on January 30th of 2021, they handcuffed the young man and put him in the back of the car. There was a white male youth with him, and he said I wasn't involved and just kind of let him get out of the car. And he was in front of his house, and they wouldn't allow him to go. He said, "I have a receipt for this. It was like a dirt bike or four wheeler." He said, and I think he and his dad bought it. They have a receipt for it, and I think they kind of cleaned it up and fixed it, and were about to sell it. The owners somehow or another saw it for sale. I guess that's what you do. You go looking for stuff, and when they came, they said they would buy it. And unbeknownst to them, this was the owner. They went to they called police. They came back with the police because it was stolen, but the young man, his father, actually had a receipt. They didn't steal it. And the officer, the young man was, based on what I've read, was very compliant. Said, I need to talk to my dad, but handcuffed him, put him back in the back of the police car. And it kind of, I mean, nobody was shot or anything. It was just the fact that he didn't believe the young man, didn't just go knock on the door. And then a supervisor for Fuquay-Varina, for this officer, told the officer, based on what I've read, is you can't, let him go. But he's now traumatized because he was cuffed and he wasn't being heard. So, what did you guys think about that?
I think the situation just in general kind of shocked me, because I feel like that I've seen and witnessed in that experience where police or some police officers, like, I guess their focus, it's, how am I trying to say this? It's like they're so focused they don't hear, if that makes any sense. And a lot of
Yes.
the difference in between like hearing and listening, like of course you hear me, but you're not listening to anything that's going on or being said. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and the trauma that like goes along with that. I think that whole incident could have been um avoided. And I just think about the trauma that's never gonna leave his mind,
Right.
about like the experience that happens. Like he'll be 50, 60 years old still thinking about the experience that he had.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's shocking, but not surprising.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that you're
I
right.
find, oh, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I was kind of, I saw you moving trying to get ready.
I was trying. Oh my God, I was trying. I was really struggling. I kept pushing it. It wasn't doing anything.
Yeah. I
But
didn't want you to talk with your mouth full and because we can't get till you do the Heimlich on you. So we just want to be sure.
oh my God, earlier, Andrew, when you were giving your little introduction, y'all, I don't know if you saw me like get out of the frame. I swallowed a piece of romaine lettuce whole. And for a second there, I was like, am I going to make it? I did, obviously, but it was a struggle. I just find it so interesting that, this guy was so intent on arresting this young man that he wouldn't even go check for the receipt. So, I mean, I have a couple of questions. One, is this typical for stolen property? I mean, for them to just pull up like that, like, is that typical, BJ?
See what happened. They obviously they bought it. I guess they must have advertised on Craigslist or
Yeah, yeah,
some kind
yeah.
of
But
right.
what I'm saying is, how did they even confirm that it was the same vehicle that the owner had reported stolen?
Because the owners were there.
Okay, so the owner physically, okay, that makes
Yeah.
sense. And then they were able to verify it. Okay, that
Yes.
makes sense. Well,
Yeah.
that at least clears that up for me. But what I don't understand is, he's so intent on like, arresting this guy. It seems like he wants to be kind of a hard ass. And my expectation is, if you're saying, no, you can't go get your dad. No, I don't care about seeing the receipt. To me, it seems like you're coming from a place of, well, I don't know that this receipt is valid, which understandable because you never really know. But that then begs the question, if you never really know, why did you let the white guy go, but keep the black kid cuffed? Do you get what I'm saying? Like it
Mm-hmm.
seems to be
Mm-hmm.
you're willing to go the extra mile to ensure that this, vehicle was stolen and that you're going to be able to convict this person, but you're not so focused on it that you would let a potential suspect go. Do you get what I'm saying? So it's like, even if we are playing devil's advocate, even if I am saying, well, the receipt doesn't mean anything because in all reality, it doesn't mean anything. It was still stolen. You know what I mean? You can produce a receipt for stolen property. I understand, that hesitance to be like, oh, okay, well, you have a receipt, so it's valid. I get that.
Mm-hmm.
But again, if
Mm-hmm.
we're going to treat this situation like it is this, super high profile forensic case, then I would assume that you would keep all perpetrators or all suspects that were there at the time of the sale. So to me, it just again goes to show how we criminalize blackness and we see whiteness as this kind of, I don't know, this perceived innocence. And that to me is crazy. It absolutely blows my mind.
Yeah. I right.
You know what I'm
And
saying?
yeah, I do. I mean, I was a little surprised about the young white male that was with him. And I don't know whether because the young man said, "Yeah, I bought it." So he basically had the guy going, "Yes, it's in my possession because I bought it." So that was pretty clear that he
And I
admitted.
mean, I get that, but
Right.
still, you know what I mean? You can say same thing happens with drugs. If
Yeah.
somebody, if there are two people on the side of the road, y'all are both together
Mm-hmm.
and they're trying to see who the drugs belong to, and the guy says, well, these are my drugs, I
Right.
bought them.
Right.
That doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to let the other guy go and be like, oh, well,
Right.
he said he had nothing to do with it. So to
Yeah.
me,
Yeah.
if I'm thinking about from the perspective of, you seem like you really want to solve this crime, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you're going at it.
Yeah.
You're willing to, not listen to anybody. You're handcuffing a 15-year-old. The only thing it seems to be on this guy's mind is, catching the perpetrator. So that's really what your goal is to do. I don't know why you wouldn't preserve the integrity of the quote unquote scene. That's how I feel about it.
Right.
And then Fuquay-Varina, I mean, that's a predominantly white place in North Carolina, is it not?
I don't know about the demographics, but probably so.
Because
Probably
I feel like
so.
it is.
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, I mean, yeah, I totally agree with everything that you said, and that's what the mother said at the end of this. She made a really good quote. I mean, she was talking about, you didn't hear, as Andrew said, you didn't let me, you didn't hear him.
Mm-hmm.
You just, you didn't hear him. And the thing for me, I think, because 2020 is always, perfect, but he was in front of his house.
Mm-hmm.
He said, let me see my dad who's in the house, and we show you the receipt. For me, I guess because I'm just old school, I'm thinking he didn't run and he was compliant. He wasn't trying to resist. Because if something is stolen, and for some bad guys, they're going to run, they're going to lie, they're going to be fidgety, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And even, I mean, to the point where you want to cuff them because you're like, okay, I need you to calm down because I just got to make, because you're not being safe. But this young man was, based on what we're reading, wasn't like that. He was just like, I bought it. I have a receipt. Can we talk to my dad? And wasn't trying to run away. So walk him up to the daddy's house and just let him in. So yeah, it was just, but the other piece is that, I want people to also understand is that his supervisor got there and corrected it. You know what I'm saying? Like, he basically was, based on what I've read, he was overheard telling the officer he should not have done that. Which
But did he
speaks,
address the family? That's also my question. Is like
he that the
about
officer, he may not have, but what I want to say, that he may not have addressed the family in a way that the family would have been sad, because I mean they probably look, at this point they probably ain't hearing nobody at this point, right? But what I want to say, at least the supervisor understood that this was not the right thing to do, and he corrected the officer. And so I wanted people, at least, let's at least take a little time and look at that, which says something about that police chief's philosophy, that at least the supervisor knew that this was inappropriate and corrected it at that moment, and was like, we're not going to do this, which speaks volumes as to telling his officer no, and you were wrong. And I think we need to try to pay a little bit of attention to that. But I think the other piece that I also appreciate is the family filing a complaint.
Also, BJ, can I mention this real quick?
Go
I
ahead.
looked at the demographic, and I think it was 73% of Fuquay-Varina is white.
Okay.
Just
Okay.
as a little bit of background of
Yes.
where this is happening. This is in North Carolina, for those of you that are not familiar. So we are definitely south of the Mason-Dixon line, right, right in the Bible Belt. So I think that
Yes.
cultural, for the point that you were mentioning as well, is also pretty important.
Yeah. And thank you for that. And also too, but I got to remember too that people need to know we're recording and broadcasting out of Durham, North Carolina, the Bull City. My nephew is in Greensboro, but we want to claim Bull City. Folks want to know where we at. So
You
that's
gotta throw
what,
the bull.
yeah, I got to throw out the bull. That's right. So yeah, but I think the other thing too is that the family filed a complaint. And I think that, the work that UN50 does is the young man complied, he wasn't resistant. He did everything that he needed to do. Unfortunately, he got handcuffed, but he is at home, because that's what we want people to get to the house. But also the fact that this family filed a complaint about this issue. And that's just, for me, that just speaks volumes. If you don't feel like you've been treated correctly, file a complaint. So
Can
this,
I play devil's advocate real quick?
yeah, go right ahead. You always do, but go ahead.
Well, here's the thing, and again, I don't have all of the context, so I don't know, if the supervisor addressed the family directly, but I think that there is something to be said about accountability. And from my perspective, and from the perspective of restorative justice, which doesn't just say, hey, you messed up, this is the punishment, you did X, here is Y and Z. It really takes into account what the person that you have harmed needs to feel like the situation has been rectified. And so I don't think that it's good enough for you to correct an officer in that moment. That's only part of the puzzle. And to me, I think it implicates a larger issue within this system of policing, which is, again, we're protecting people that are on this side of the blue line. That means that I'm going to correct you, but not that I'm going to necessarily, address and or condemn it outside of this circle. And I think that that's incomplete. Do you get what I'm saying? And like, in my opinion, and from my perspective, which, I am a very, hippity dippity type of person, what good is the correction if it only goes to that specific officer? You know what I mean? It's not addressed with this boy. I assume it probably was not addressed with their families. There could have been, in my opinion, probably a lot more reconciliation, even if it wasn't at that moment, to say, hey, this situation should not have happened like this. I'm able to acknowledge it. I need to have a conversation with my officer to understand why he thought that this protocol was appropriate. And then I want us to come back together and have a conversation about it. I think that, and, possibly they don't have enough time. I don't know. Schedules are crazy. Like you said, people may not be receptive, but in my opinion, in an ideal world, that's what justice and reconciliation and accountability really, really looks like. Accountability where, you basically say sorry to your boss because they pointed out that you were wrong and your job depends on it, to me is not genuine accountability, and it's not holistic accountability. We have to be accountable specifically to the people that we have harmed. And clearly this was a big event for this guy. I mean, he's a 15-year-old Black male living in Fuquay-Varina, North Carolina. And so I think Raleigh is probably the closest nearby city, and that's at least 25, 30 minutes by highway. I mean, to a 15-year-old that can't drive, that feels like a world away. So I think it's not enough. I understand what you're saying, and I definitely think that is very different than the other things that we've seen before. And I love that we're starting to see that shift. But I also have to come back to the fact that it's not enough. I think people, in particular, people of color, are able to be pacified or have been, historically pacified. Because, I mean, think about it this way. If you were beaten and made to work for free and live in subpar conditions, when you get the chance to be a sharecropper, it probably feels pretty good. And when you've been a sharecropper and you have the opportunity to find another position, or for your children to find another position, that probably feels pretty good. So I feel like, we get to these places where we're able to celebrate these small wins and, in some cases, big wins, but we have to be reminded that it's not enough and that we're not even close to really touching the surface of how big this problem is.
Okay.
Drop the mic. You're welcome.
No, I totally agree. And in fact, that's what one of the things the Emancipate North Carolina is trying to get an apology. And I went to the website for Fuquay-Varina, and just based on the website, the police chief seems to be extremely progressive. So I would say I probably might bet 50 cents on it, but I got a feeling somebody's going to apologize to the family in some form or fashion.
Yeah.
But she's got a lot of progressive things on her website that just.
And
that's what I mean. When I saw her website, I was like, wow, this. So I'm not speaking for her, but I know if I was in her position and the way her website looks, I know if I had been given a call about what had happened, I probably would have just banged my head up against the wall and went, I'm really trying. I got this offside that it just messed up. So I'm sure she's frustrated, but I think, based on what I've seen on the website, it's going to be okay. Andrew, do you have any input? And we'll move on to something else.
Now that I could think of, I was thinking about, I guess, when I was reading about how, I think I read that someone superior came up after that, the whole situation happened, and was like, hey, chill out, y'all know what y'all are doing. So that just, I don't know, that part not made me question stuff. It was like, I don't know what information that the other officer was lacking to have someone else have to come to tell you that you have to calm down, you have to do things differently.
Common sense. That's what he lacked. All them out.
That's all I was thinking about.
Also, one more thing, BJ. I know. I'll shut up in a second.
No.
But you had mentioned that you liked how she filed a complaint, and I think that is one of the beautiful things that you do with UN50, I like that this program doesn't say, basically, shut up, the police are doing the best they can and you just need to deal with it. And this is why they feel that way. I love that you are always very adamant about highlighting the importance of making a complaint and knowing how to make a complaint. And, it comes from a place of privilege that a lot of us have access to this knowledge or even have like the time to invest in filing a complaint.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that UN50 makes this accessible and digestible to people that probably otherwise would not have access to this information, or at least have not been it's not been presented to them in this way of you can file a complaint and this is a process that it goes through. I think what would be really interesting for a show is if maybe we could talk about the Durham Citizens Review Board process and maybe get somebody in from their team, because it's been a while since I've heard about it. You were the one that taught me about it initially.
Okay.
And I just want to know how it's hopefully changed and evolved over, the last 6 years that you and I have been working together.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because I know the chair. So yeah, I'll reach out to him this week. No, that's a good
Awesome.
idea. That's a really good idea. Thank you. Thank you for that. Yeah, it's all about filing. Yeah, you got to file complaints, and now, you know, she's making that family is like, okay, this is not acceptable, and we need the police department to do XYZ or any other thing they feel like, and just to have that conversation. What went wrong? Do we need to do something different? And all that kind of stuff. I mean, I don't feel like the officer is going to get terminated, but there may be something that that's going to happen internally. But at least the conversation is being had about this moment, and it would not have occurred if they had not done that. So yeah.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. That, and I mean, for it to be Fuquay-Varina too, like when I read it, I was like, oh shit, here we go. You know what I mean? Like I was just preparing myself for some type of just foolishness. And although it was some foolishness, I think it also says something about the officers that were there that were like, hey, nah, dude, you doing too much. You know what I mean? And it takes a special type of courage and bravery, in my opinion, to call out like your own person. You know what I mean? Like this is in law enforcement, correct me if I'm wrong, it's like a brotherhood. Like this is your family, especially if you're patrolling with somebody fairly often. So to be like, nah, you wrong. And then to do it in front of the people, you know what I mean? To call them out in the moment, I think is super impressive. And like you said, I think it goes to show that people are starting to have different conversations. And perhaps these people have always existed. They just never knew that they had the bravery or had, the ability to really stand up in these situations. And I love that as a culture, people have just been snapping back at all this racist crap that's going on. Did you hear about like Dr. Seuss?
Oh yeah, so I mean, I've heard about it. I'm not really understanding what's happening with his stuff, but yeah, I heard about it.
Well, essentially, they are saying that a lot of his books had, I guess, like racist origins. I haven't read too much about it, but the fact of the matter is that people that are in control of publishing are talking about this stuff. And I think it's so impressive. I mean, because what Ring Around the Rosie, wasn't that a
that was a what was it? It was like the bubonic plagues. Wasn't that right? Am I wrong?
I don't know, but there's maybe that's the wrong one I'm thinking about, but there are some like nursery rhymes that are racist, like, and people have known this for a really long time, and it's kind of like, oh well, we know it, but it's a part of our culture. Like I read Dr. Seuss growing up. Am I Your Mother was like my favorite book. Loved it. One Fish, Two Fish, that was my shit. You know what I mean? Like we knew.
Yeah.
Or my parents knew, I assume, and nobody did anything about it. I don't know. People are starting to clap back, and people are getting snatched left and right, stepping on necks, and I appreciate it. Do you guys watch The Bachelor?
No. And
Okay.
if I did, I wouldn't admit it, but go ahead.
Oh, it's so good, BJ. It's so good. So this guy's actually from North Carolina. Shout out to Matt James. I don't know if you'll ever listen to this podcast, Matt James, but like literally, I'm in love with you, and I should have been on the show, and I almost slid in his DMs, but I didn't. Long story short, the host of the show had essentially defended one of the contestants that had been seen at an old South party, like a slavery-based party, and it was banned by the university, and the sorority decided to have the event anyway. And he said, well, it's not a good look in 2021 because of the woke police, but was it not a good look in 2018? His name's Chris Harrison, and several people from the franchise are calling for him to be removed, and he has temporarily stepped
Mm.
aside. So,
Okay.
this is a very pivotal moment, I feel like, in our culture where people of color are being believed and they are actually being elevated to matter in a sense. And I wonder how much of that has to do with the other extreme side of the coin, which is, I think, like MAGA supporters that are all
Mm.
make America great again. I don't
Right.
know, a little bit of a tangent, but I obviously political climate and social climate affect people. So of course it affects police officers and citizens and how they interact. So I don't know. I'm just interested to see how things continue to either progress or regress
Hmm.
um,
Right.
into this new presidency.
Right. Anything, Andrew, you want to add to that?
Now that I can think of, I was just listening. So now that I can think of.
As usual, you just kind of reverted back into just listening. So it's like back to just Harmony and BJ show. No, yeah.
Wow, BJ, that was shady. I'm just gonna go ahead and call that out. That was shady.
Well, that's what he sits back, and just kind of absorbs everything. So, and and I appreciate that. That's what my nephew does. So real quick though, so I was telling you guys I was doing this research. Because the question was what I was trying to answer for police officers were, why black folks looking at y'all all sideways? What's the history behind that? Because I think we talked about it early on about slave patrol
Mm-hmm.
and enslaved persons and how the history of that has gotten sanitized, right? So I was trying to figure out which means that young officers today, because and I actually, Andrew, I've been kind of referencing a comment that you made when we first started. You said, I've heard of this, but I'm not real. I've heard kind of on the peripheral, which means as black folks and young black folks, you don't know the history, because it's just not something that's just taught or whatever. So anyway, so I was doing this thing about how do I help young officers kind of understand this history of the black community and why black folks look at you like that. And then I started looking at obviously Jim Crow laws, right? Racial segregation, keeping black folks and white folks separated. And then I was looking at like 1990, the lynchings that started Jim Crow after the freedmen and all that. So basically, law enforcement was on the forefront of enforcing all these social norms. Right, you can't go to the library, you can't drink water, you can't go to the restaurant. So the law enforcement is on the forefront of keeping black folks separated from white folks. And then the Jim Crow laws were being enforced by law enforcement back then between 1865. Technically, it lasted from 1865 to 1954, but we know it probably lasted a little longer, into the late 60s, because you had the civil rights movement and all of that. You got the dogs, you got the hoes, you got all of that going on. And so, why does this all look familiar? Is because black folks during Jim Crow couldn't go to the park, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in 2018, a black family trying to have a barbecue in the park, get the popo called on them.
Mm-hmm.
Got some black females coming out of Airbnb, putting their suitcases up in California, in a white neighborhood, you got the popo being called on them. And so all of that is just familiar to us as a culture, because
Mm-hmm.
it's like we're still being kept out of this, and law enforcement is the front line of that. We realize that officers today weren't involved in that, but this is familiar because of what that represents. And even in January, down in Louisiana, a deputy died, and his wife wanted to bury her in this cemetery. And the lady said, "We can't bury you here because it's a white cemetery, and we can't do it by the bylaws." The Jim Crow laws were still part of the cemetery in January of 2021.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean,
Where was
they
this?
but
Do you know?
down in Louisiana. Yeah, I got the link. And
Oh.
the guy, he bent over backwards to remedy that. But the fact that it was still in the bylaws and this woman still was trying to enforce it was just like, really, y'all,
Ugh.
really.
I
And
won't
so
want to be
that,
buried amongst that anyway, honey.
but it
Mm-mm.
just shows you, for black people, this stuff is just looks familiar, sounds familiar.
And feels familiar because trauma has a way of literally transforming the body, and
Hmm.
that's
Yes.
a part of evolution, and like that is why we are able to,
Yeah.
communicate, and we're not just operating from that very primal fight, flight, or
Yeah.
freeze.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's evolution. So it's like this is literally in our DNA. It
Yeah.
is a part of our neural pathways. And I think in order to remedy
Yeah.
that, we need more comprehensive justice.
Yeah.
Justice, in the traditional sense, in my opinion, and traditional policing also, in my humble opinion, uphold white supremacy. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm almost kind of like, to be honest with you, kind of sick of this conversation about policing, if that makes sense. Like, I'm tired of having to have this conversation over and over and over again.
Hmm.
But I feel like a part of the reason we continue to have the conversation is because we're still operating from this traditional standpoint of police citizens,
Hmm.
and also, not doing the best job of training these folks or sourcing.
Yeah. But also too, it's still new. You know what I'm saying? I mean, these things
Mm,
happen.
very true.
You're talking, for historically that they're saying 1865 to 1954. I mean, I'm born 3 years later, right?
Wait, when were you
So,
born? 1957.
yeah, yeah. So,
Look, my math ain't good. I'm
right.
trying to
Yeah, yeah,
calculate.
yeah. So the thing is, this stuff is new. So I mean,
Hmm.
so that means that all young officers, their parents are aware of this, and depending on where you live, some of your parents or your grandparents probably knew some folks that might have gotten lynched. You
Hmm.
know what I'm saying? So we got to make sure that we at least recognize that this stuff's still new. This stuff still is relatively new, and these are stories that are told over this. I think I mentioned my father. I think I mentioned this when we were talking about slaves. I mean, he wasn't a slave, but the fact that he went to sell his tobacco then in the eastern part of the state, and where we live in Martin County, and he asked the guy while he was trying to sell his tobacco because he wasn't getting fair market. Right? He asked the white guy, the ox, why am I? And I don't know what he told me that the guy said, but he knew because he was a black farmer standing beside his tobacco, like all the other farmers, white farmers standing beside their tobacco, and he wasn't getting a fair market. So what he did one day, he stopped standing beside his tobacco. And
Mm.
once he did that, he began to get fair market because they had to because they didn't know it was a black farmer. So
Mm.
my father with a seventh grade education figured out how to. I got that. I'm just
Swindle.
I'm just gonna go ahead and move away from this pile of
Okay.
tobacco. Yeah, I got that.
Perfect.
So I mean, and so those are the kind of stories that my parents have experienced. I've experienced, being discriminated again, and all this kind of stuff. So I don't know. I think the history and this people need to understand. And then the other thing I wanted that I also looked up was there was the first the ride in Chicago behind there was a young black male in Lake Michigan, and he obviously swam across the water at Lake Michigan across this line, right? That's and ended up in the white water side of the beach, and they threw a brick rock at him and killed him. I mean, it hit him, and he drowned. Right? Black folks on the black side of Lake Michigan said and pointed to the suspect was a white guy, and they didn't. Needless to say, they didn't arrest him. So of course they had a major riot behind that. So that was in 1919, and they had a blue ribbon commission in 1922 to kind of look at what are the causes, what that right. So got 1922. Then there was a riot in Harlem based on a rumor saying a young man was beaten, but he wasn't. But there still was a riot behind that. There was the riot in Watts. The Watts riot, I think was in 65. And then you had the Kerner Commission in 1968 under Johnson, right? All of these individuals, all of these riots, so to speak, ended up with these reports as to why these riots occurred. Kind of wanted to get down into it. And all of them had similar reasons: poor education, racial discrimination, issues with police, health. All of these basically are from 1919 to 1968, and still probably, and what we're talking about today, the stuff that we're still talking about, disparities in health, education, job opportunities, these are the same things that these commissions found out of were the causes for these riots in the black community. One of the reasons, because they were being lynched, they were being segregated against, and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, we're still dealing with stuff from this commission in 1922. They're having the same basic things that we're still talking about today in the black and brown communities.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, I'm not exactly surprised, but it's just like how many more reports do we need to,
Would make two and two equal four. No, I understand. I know.
I'm
I
just
get it.
like, come on, y'all. I mean, how many more times do you say if you educate? Because they were even saying, got to educate the Negro children in the slums. Okay, well, educate the Negro children in the slum, make the school. I mean, one of them in Watts, we was saying they didn't even have cafeterias because they had to make room for the immigrants coming to California because they had to make the cafeterias classroom because it was so full. So they didn't have food at some of these schools. They recognized these issues, but did not do the funding and make these. It's just I don't know.
Which kind of proves my point that you knew what the issues were. Now you just didn't care enough to do anything about it.
Amazing. It was just absolutely. It's just. I mean, again, and I think for me, and I know you're tired of talking about it, but it's like people got to understand the history. And I think it's important for that's why I'm trying to do this piece about law enforcement, understanding, over the years, this is why black folks looking at you all sideways. Well, I understand it's not your fault, but you need to understand why black folks keep saying, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. That's
Nobody says that anymore, BJ. Nobody over the age of 85 says that.
you can mute yourself now.
No,
Nobody,
no, literally nobody says that. But
yeah, people do. I just heard that recently. Somebody said that.
you said it. And how old were they?
They were
Oh,
about my age. They said sick and tired of being sick and tired. In fact, it was a song. It's in a recent current song. The person said sick and tired of being sick and tired. Seriously. I'm
okay.
going okay. Well, don't let me find that song.
Send me the link. I'll believe it when I hear it. But also, just a quick note. Shout out to us. Shout out to Black people. Just the sheer resilience
Mm-hmm.
of our community, in my opinion, is one of the most spectacular and amazing feelings. Like, it is so exhausting to deal with racism and being criminalized, and as a woman of color, being overly sexualized. But
Yeah.
just to know, I don't know, just how far we've come against all odds, how we keep fighting, how we're resilient, how, all
Yeah.
three of us are brave enough to have these conversations on a platform that is very public. So yeah, shout out to us, shout out to Black people. It's Black History every month this year. I'm gonna keep reminding you guys. Yeah, I don't know, I'm proud of it. I'm incredibly proud, and I don't know, just thankful to be Black.
Blackity black.
And every month I'm gonna be Black, 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 Black.
Andrew, what you got to say, my man? Just so
I
glad to
was
have you back.
just thinking about some of the things that y'all were talking about, and how they relate to
You're
like
gonna
all
have to
those
stop using that.
experiences.
That's a cop out.
Say that again.
That's a cop out. We're gonna need for you to have something else to say.
I was trying to think like it was really random because it's been on my mind for a few days, but it's a tangent, so it's not. I guess it's related, but not related at the same time. But um, like recently, there was an incident in front of my apartment complex where someone died. Someone got shot. There's a dude who just got shot
What?
Oh
in
my
front of
god.
my apartment complex, and the way the where I live, it's like a townhome complex. So there's not an actual street in front of me. There's like a it's like a
Girl,
cul-de-sac. It's like a cul-de-sac of some sort. Do you know where Block 43 is, Harmony? You know,
mm,
it's okay.
I
It's
went home
so
all the time. Okay, but is it? I feel like is it the nice townhomes that are like different colors outside?
yeah.
It looks. Okay, yes, I do know what you're talking about.
All right, so that's where's this number? I sent you the article, but so basically, someone got shot, but that's like I came home to like where I live was blocked off by caution tape, so I couldn't park in front of my home like I usually do.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I walked up to this to the scene, the crime scene, I stood at the end of the caution tape, and there was a white Caucasian officer who walked up to me, and I guess like every interaction I have with police, I'm not gonna forget them anymore. I don't know. I don't know why. I'm just never going to forget each and every one. Doesn't matter if it's good or bad.
Mm-hmm.
And then when he walked up to me, he asked, what are you doing here? Or where are you trying? Where are you? What are you doing here? Where are you trying to go? And it was just very abrasive the way that he approached me. I understood the severity of the situation. There was like it had just happened like maybe 2 hours ago, so there was the man's blood was still on the ground. There was his coat and stuff was still there.
Right.
He wasn't there. He was transported to the hospital and such, but there was still an active events like an active crime scene going on. So I told him like I live literally 100 feet away. And I was trying to get into my home, and then he just told me to go on and walk on the edge of the thing. But I guess I have been thinking about it for a few days because just like mentioned, the abrasiveness of how he approached me. But I was trying to be cognizant of the severity of what his mind was going through,
Mm-hmm.
and like things like that. I know that they were dealing with a lot of things. It was around 10 o'clock at night, so he was probably tired. So just certain things, like I guess that certain interactions that I know are not like charged with things, but just certain interactions that stick with me, if that makes any sense. And I
Mm-hmm.
was thinking about as y'all were talking.
Definitely.
Yeah,
Were you
that's fair. Yeah. Go ahead, Harmony. What were you saying?
I was just asking, were you at home, Andrew, when that happened, or you? Okay,
Uh,
so you were just coming back. Oh, well, I'm
yeah,
glad that you're safe.
me too. I was coming back. My neighbor texted me and said there was someone shot outside of our house.
Oh.
Um, Man, I wasn't home.
He died, right?
Mm-hmm.
He did.
Yeah. I actually thought about you because I saw something on the local channel about subject being homicide in
Yeah,
Greensboro. I
it
thought
was
about you.
right outside my window. Like I can still look outside my window and see the I don't know what it's called, but I know the powder that they put over like when kids throw up in school, that
Mm-hmm.
brown powder. There's still the powder on the ground from when they were covering it up.
Yeah, to absorb the blood. Yeah. Yeah. So the liquid. Well, yeah. You know what? And I appreciate you know, at least acknowledging the fact that where the officer's space may have been during that moment. You know what I'm saying? I mean, not to take any excuse of it, but I appreciate your willingness to be flexible enough to know that it's doing stuff like that. It puts you in a whole different space when you're having to
Mm-hmm.
move around bodies, and you don't you just
You don't know.
you yeah you just you don't know, and not we don't know if they were like still looking for the suspect, and all that kind of stuff. So I appreciate your willingness to, yeah, people walking around stepping in people's blood, and having to deal with families, because somebody's got to go break the news to the family. So yeah, officers can get into a zone, and yeah, but yeah, I appreciate that. But you're right.
Did you
It's
deal with a lot of like? I know this is off topic, but now I'm curious. Did you deal with a lot of like crime scenes like that, like homicides,
yeah,
suicides? You did.
yeah, yeah.
I just like honestly, us talking about it, like I feel sick to my stomach, and I kind of feel like sad. Um, and I just can't like I can't imagine doing that once, like literally ever in my life, but then to have to do that like several times over the course of your career. I mean, thank God that there are people that do this work, but whew, like I really feel like sick.
Wow. Yeah, yeah, it's not. Yeah.
Yeah, I probably would not be the nicest in that situation either. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I mean, I guess just so what you learn is, if nothing else, what we learn is law enforcement, and having it, when you just kind of have to say it. You know what I'm saying? Especially when it comes to having to deliver this information that nobody ever wants to hear. Because having a police officer walk up and knock on your door, and you ain't done nothing wrong, it's not going to be good news. So what we learn is you can't stumble. You got to be quick. And some agencies actually have chaplains that go to do that themselves. They have a chaplain with the police department to
Mhm.
either go with the officer or the investigator, or just go and help deliver that and be with the
Mhm.
family, to just be with them, which I think is really good. A lot of departments have, especially if they can afford it, have that. So
Do you know if we have that in Durham County? I'm just curious.
yeah, I know we do. I don't know whether he's still there.
Okay.
Yeah, he was actually, he's retired now. He was I was with there with him, and I think he's still the chaplain for Durham Police Department. Whether he still does some of that, I don't know, but
Yeah.
I know that some agencies do. But yeah, it's yeah, well, yeah. I'll share some of that with you sometime if you want to hear. But that's
Honey,
all.
I don't know if I can take it. I'm over here about to do this man's
No,
obituary.
don't be sick. So look, so yeah, this has been really cool. I'm so excited that Andrew came back.
How are you gonna cut me off like that? You know
Oh,
what?
I'm sorry. What'd you say?
Whoop. Don't worry about it.
Well, no, you were talking about being sick, right?
No, I'm talking about like now I'm about to be ready to like stalk this guy. Like I'm about to find his obituary. I'm about to see if I can
Oh,
like I'm one of those people that like go
oh,
rabbit holes. Like if I watch true crime, like a true crime documentary,
oh.
I'm gonna Google afterwards. I want to see if there are infractions. Like I don't know. I can't stop.
uh, yeah, like I've said before, there's a 12-step program for that. So anyway, so
That was making funny. Like, did you get that?
no, I did. Did Andrew get that?
No, he didn't.
I know, right? Oh well. All right. So thank you very much, and I appreciate this conversation that we've had. And I am so happy the team's back together. Andrew, congratulations again on your internship. That's really awesome. Glad Molly is good. Waffles is looking good over there, even though he's humping stuff. But he's cat's got to do what a cat's got to do. So, any parting words, Harmony?
um, I love how this conversation has made me feel thankful to be Black, but I love how Andrew also I think that the story that he told is just a testament of like emotional intelligence and involvement over time. You know what I mean? Not him necessarily, but I know for somebody that's probably, 10, 20 years older than him, it's probably hard to do that again because we weren't having these compassion based conversations to look at both sides in
Right.
an emotionally intelligent and I would say more complex way. So, I also want to say that I'm really thankful for police officers. The job is not easy. I couldn't do it. I say all the time, like if I had to be a police officer, we literally would all be screwed. Uh, I couldn't handle it. I know that I couldn't handle it. So I'm really thankful for the men and women in uniform that show up for the right reasons and that continue to show up despite the circumstances because first of all, it's hard work to do. And then it's hard work to do and then be disrespected and or treated like the enemy. So yeah, just really thankful for the people that show up regardless for us and for our communities, even though it's tough.
Right. Wow. Thank you for saying that. Yeah. Andrew, you got any parting words?
I guess mine would be similar to what Harmony said, and also echoing, I guess the general conversation. Just I guess stating, making sure that like individuals, police officers, and anyone in any facet or profession, just make sure that they are more intentional with the interactions that they have with people. Like the interaction that I had with the officer, although it wasn't negative, just me stepping out of the car and having to walk near a crime scene, number one, near a police officer, when like I understand this color of my skin and other things that go into the thought of me having to be in that situation just in general, and then relating it back to Malcolm's situation. So there's certain things where it's like stuff like that will never leave people. So it's
Right.
like you never know the action. Like I know neither one of those parties knew that was going to happen that morning, but it's like
Mm-hmm.
you just have to be careful about what things are charged throughout the day, and the interactions that you have with people. So be more intentional with the conversations because you never know how harshly it will stick with them for the rest of their lives.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Love
Wow.
that.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, you're right because you never know what chapter of that person's life you're entering in on. So you need to be cognizant of that. That everybody's got their own stuff, and however you interact with them can have a lasting impact on them. So yeah, thank you guys. I really appreciate that. All right, so hopefully we will come back again, hopefully. And just like I said, I keep saying this. I'm just so glad the team's back together, and I appreciate it. And always, I appreciate those of you that are, faithful and listening to us. And as always, be safe, be well, peace.